Welcome, everyone. This is the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you so much for coming here, hanging out with us for a beer and some conversation. We are going to jump right into the show here. Let us know what you're drinking. Put it in the comments. Ask questions about what we're talking about. Feel free to chime in. We would greatly appreciate it. And with that said, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us for a couple of beers and some conversations. I'm Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Tim. Doing pretty good. A little tired today for some reason. I have
Fatigued?
no real good reason for it. I just a little slow, I guess. So
okay, it happens. Like more than normal.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's the pollen.
I bet it is.
I think that's it. I think it's slowing me down. It's making my head a little thick. So,
it'll do it.
Like the rest of me.
Right. Matches the rest of you.
Yeah.
Mo Mike Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a little shocked that it's already Wednesday again, but very happy to be here and share some time with you boys.
Good stuff, man. Good
Tim,
stuff.
how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah. All told, the weather here has been pretty nice and cranking along. Work's been busy. I'm taking a little break now. I was just telling you guys just before we went on air. So I normally work a little late through the week, but on Wednesdays that's my day. I take off and do a little bit before we start the show. And within like an hour and a half, I had 21 emails and like 5 or 6 of those was meeting requests. I'm like, man. They weren't meetings for like today, but it was stacking my calendar. So I just went in and rejected them all. So
that's a good policy. Meeting invites after a certain time, automatic rejection.
Decline. Yeah.
I do like that about my particular job. I have a lot of meetings, but I very rarely get them after a certain period of time in the day.
Yeah.
Like they'll save that for the next day. So
my company is international, and we've got a big operation on the West Coast, and of course we're here in the Atlanta area, so we get a lot of stuff, up to like 9-10 o'clock, which would be 6-7 Pacific time. So that's why I like to reach out to everybody on the West Coast early in the morning, so they're getting stuff at like 4 a.m. and say, I'll teach you. We can both play that game here. We can do that.
Revenge,
man. Revenge. Well, guys, let's talk about our beers of the week. Brian, what are you drinking?
So my pregame beer was my last can of Halfway Crooks Ada, which is a German Pilsner. It's named for Ada Lovelace and Lovelace. I'm not sure how you actually pronounce her name, but one of the very first computer programmers. Cool. And arguably, some people say one of the first. I think it depends on how you define what computer programming is, but one of the very early pioneers in that. So that's pretty neat. As a guy who writes code himself, I appreciate both the beer and the historical, figure. I'm now drinking Variant's Bright Lord, which is an Italian Pilsner, so I'm sticking with Pilsners for this portion of the show. And then afterwards, I'm going to get into Angry Chair's French Toast, which is an Imperial Porter with maple, cinnamon, and vanilla. And I had to go digging around. They didn't say what the percentage was on the can. I'm like, this might be a mistake. And it's only 10%. So only
10%. Oh, it's only 10. I get it's one of those things. If your expectations, if it doesn't hit your expectations, because you're thinking, oh man, this could be, 14-15%.
That's what I was thinking.
Then it's 10. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is fine. I'm like, it could well. I was thinking, like, if this is not on the can, this may be just beast mode here. But no, it's 10%. It's it's big, but it's not huge. So, and that's probably my after show thing with the hanging out with the Patreon folks. So yeah, it's fine, no big deal.
You'll be fine.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
It's fine. How about you, Tim?
Me, so I have today from a local brewery. I'm drinking local today, as I remind everyone to do every week. And I have from Monday Night Brewing a bourbon barrel drafty kilt, which is a Scotch ale, bourbon barrel aged Scotch ale. I had the drafty kilt, which is just a Scotch ale, and I almost went for that and then said, you know what? No, I deserve bourbon barrel aging in my beer.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, you do.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to be sipping on during the show. Nate, how about you?
So I had a little pregame. I had a cousin of beer from Hoplark, which is actually somebody that we interviewed way back in May of 2021. Hoplark, I've got their sparkling hop water, which is a seltzer water with Sabro hops in it. That was really nice to started my palate on. And then in honor of this Saturday being when this episode releases, we'll be on site at Good Word Brewing for their little beer fest. I've got one of their New England IPAs, Hop Concepts, in my glass right now. And then later on in the show, and definitely with the patrons, I pulled an Orpheus bottle out of my cellar. Past that lies before us, which is a rye barrel aged Adam beer.
Rye barrels. Rye
That's
barrels.
going to be big. That's going to be
Is
bigger
it
than my stout. Yeah.
so? Your notes say BBA,
Hmm.
Nate. It is
Yeah, I
RBA.
realize it should be RBA. Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
all right. I just was making sure we were given the correct info on that beer. Orpheus, Jason Pellet that owned Orpheus Brewing, he moved to the Netherlands. And, the Orpheus did close. He moved to the Netherlands and he has started a brewery over there called the Hollows. And he started doing a few things. I believe he also brews for another brewery. Like he does his
does.
project as a side project and then brews. But I saw a picture today. He's like, I'm back in my element. I'm processing adjuncts for stouts. And it showed him scraping a bunch of vanilla beans. So he's up to his old tricks over there in the Netherlands. And so I haven't had any Hollows beers yet.
I haven't either. I don't know
Yeah.
what he's even turned around under his own official thing, because he was getting it all official and legal with the government there, so he could
Sure.
be a proper brewery in his little.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's got where he lives. I think he's got a building attached to it.
Garage type thing, an outbuilding garage.
I don't know if
type
it's
thing.
a garage. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. But yeah, he's trying to make that a proper legal brewery. So
He did say over there that was something he could do, right? Like
Yeah.
he
Oh, it's
could,
legal.
that's not an issue. Like here in America, they just, they'd lose their minds. There wouldn't be enough tears involved for that to work out.
Could you imagine how crazy it would have been back in the day if everybody who was into homebrewing was started selling it?
Let
it
me
was
just
legal?
say that I cannot think of anything that would have been more awesome than like there being 4 breweries in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Like you
heck
could just
yeah.
go
Oh,
down
yeah.
the street and there'd be a few breweries there. I believe we would have been darn tempted to open up my garage as a brewery if
We would
were.
have sold, at least tried selling a little
Yeah.
bit of it for
Yeah.
sure, had it been legal. And who knows where things would have gone from there. It was
Yeah.
definitely a bridge too far to open up a professional brewery from like home brewing, at least for us, I think.
Yeah, but it would be pretty cool if that was something we could do here. And you know what? One I think of that would be great for Missouri Brewing. So if they were still doing their thing, like they do real high ABV beers. I think they even did a Pilsner that was crazy high ABV, probably not to BJCP standards there, but
Probably not.
they do smaller batch stuff. And that would be perfect. That if they couldn't open a larger brewery, like they just had a little small operation. And you know what, guys, we did a 3-barrel batch or a 5-barrel batch, and this is what we got available, come and get it. And that would be pretty awesome to do that.
Yeah, at this point they would have to collaborate with an official brewery for something like that.
Yeah.
And that's not impossible to do. For somebody like the guys behind Mazert or the guy, I don't know how many people are actually really involved with it anymore, but
right. For those not in the local area,
people.
that was Hamp Covington and Dan Rosen over there. And unfortunately, a few years back, Dan was he was killed in a hit and run accident.
Yes.
So, and
I don't think they ever found the guy.
They didn't. But he was super supportive. He was very supportive of us. He really loved Beer Guys Radio and just all around good guy in that. But I do know that Missouri still, Hamp does still do some brewing. There's still some beers around out there, but they show up at Beer Fest and such. I don't know if he went this year. I know Hamp went to Tampa Beer Week, but I don't know if Missouri was at Tampa Beer Week, because there were times in the past that they were there. And I think they actually won some of the competitions down there. They did, for anybody that went the one year, they did their coconut stout and actually served it in coconuts. They had cracked
Oh, that's cool.
coconuts there. So anyhow,
That was when beer was fun.
it was
It's not
fun, man.
like
It was
that anymore.
crazy. But yeah, so a little trip down memory lane, fond memories of fun times with Missouri and Tampa Bay there. It was good stuff, guys. It was good stuff. Well, guys, on to all of our news. So, Brian, we've got some surprising news here that says craft beer is bucking some trends, bucking national trends. What the heck is going on?
Yeah. So we've been hearing all about craft beers sales declining recently over the past year, basically. But there is an exception to the bad sales number. It's New England's craft beer market. They saw growth in 2024, unlike the rest of the country. New England craft sales were up 1.8% in dollars in 2024, while the rest of the country was down by nearly the same amount in dollar sales, about 1.6%. Not only that, but the craft beer has a greater market share in New England states than any other region. It makes up 32.1% of all the beer sold in that region. So while that is good news, unfortunately, New England's growth didn't have much of a big impact on the total craft industry. It wasn't enough to move the needle, so to speak. So apparently, drilling down on what's going on in New England, value is a key factor for New England craft consumers these days, according to Bump Williams Consulting. Accordingly, 12-ounce cans and 12 packs are the dominant package format in New England, making up 31.6% of dollars spent. So they want their value when they're getting their craft. 16-ounce 4-pack sales are slowing down, but they're still the second largest in terms of sales. While long beers, aka the 19.2-ounce single-serve cans, are showing the largest growth in the region, and they're becoming more prevalent in grocery stores around New England. Beverage variety is the most important factor for taproom consumers in New England, and I think this is probably true for most of the country, really, but specifically New England. When people go to a tap room, they're expecting to see a lot of options. They want to see craft beer, they want to see wine, they want to see seltzer, and they want to see cocktails. They want all of the above. And I think if you don't give them all of the above, they're not as likely to visit your venue. So that's puts a lot on the brewery,
Back in my day, it was enough for a brewery to have beer, Brian.
That's right.
That's all it took. You didn't even have to be. You could be in like a war zone, and if you had decent beer, people would come out. So demanding, these modern beer drinkers.
Every third person was just shot or something like that, but it would be fine because there's beer. It's not a big deal, Yeah, your beer didn't even have to be good. Once upon a time, back in the glory days, you opened up a brewery and you were making craft beer. People would show up and it wouldn't even be good beer, but nobody knew the difference, and it was right there. It was the hot new thing, and so everybody was into it. It was exciting. Like we made this with spruce tips and I don't know, peppermint sticks, onions, and whatever. And it tasted awful, but it was exciting. It was it was different. So people,
there are even some breweries that did. I'm not sure. I'm pretty positive there's not as much like general creativity or craziness, maybe rather than creativity, maybe craziness. Because we had maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago was kind of the Wild West for American craft beer. And candy bars were being put in beer, and every fruit and so much lactose you needed to, take a pill to drink it.
Yes.
And I know those still happen, but man, they just don't seem to have the hype that they did, years ago. And there were some good breweries, very good breweries that still did some of the crazy stuff. I'm going to put my buddy Scott Hadeen on the carpet here, who made some really great beers. He had a lot of really good big stouts, and I was there with him throwing Butterfinger bars in a blender with a stout and literally blending it in there and pouring beers out of a blender pitcher with Butterfinger bars.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite beers that he made was Almond's Joy or something like that, where he was literally throwing Almond Joy candy bars into a boil. It was a
Yeah.
great chocolate milk stout with almonds.
We did with our home brewery that we called the Mostly Harmless Brewing Company. People who've been with the show for a while remember us talking about old TMHBC, but we did collaborations with Burnt Hickory a couple times for some of their anniversary events. And we did, what was the base beer, Brian, that we did with the Stroop waffles there? I forget.
Oh, geez.
I'm forgetting the name right now, but it was
Wolf's
their
Farm?
quad, right?
Oh,
Yeah, I don't. Well, did we?
Anyhow,
Yeah, I don't.
but we
Man, it's been
were
too long.
we were talking to the brewer at the time, Will Avery, about putting some Stroop waffles and coffee in this beer. And he said, how much do you want to put? I was like, well, I was trying to think of a way to get a decent flavor. And Scott was around the corner and he yells out, all of it, put all the coffee and all the Stroop waffles in there.
I remember drinking that and thinking about this is great. The sediment's a little much.
Yeah, you didn't want to get off the bottom of the keg.
Yeah,
that
the
was
bottom.
for sure.
Yeah, or just the bottom of your cup most of the time.
Yeah,
you get a little Stroop waffle in the back of your throat.
a little bit of
It's
Stroop
a little
waffle.
rough. Yeah.
It happens, man.
what was the base beer? The Charred Walls of the Damned.
It was Charred Walls.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah,
it wasn't
it was
ours.
Charred Walls.
I didn't think we did the base for that. I didn't remember exactly.
No,
how
we
they came
didn't.
together.
Right?
Yeah.
No, yeah. So we collaborated on a cask with them. We got to pick out what went in the cask with their beer, but we did also brew some of our beers and collaboratively with them and serve them up at some of their events. But that was fun times, man. It was wild. It was crazy. There were literally people running around in banana hammocks and crazy clown outfits and tiger suits, and it was a wild time.
Eggnog stouts on tour. It'd be 105 degrees in the brew house, but you're waiting there to get a pour
of an
eggnog stout. Which is like, yeah, milk was a bad choice, but we're still doing it. Yeah,
didn't stop you. Stop you. Well, Brian, more I guess good news for beer as we talk about market share and sales and all that, but beer is actually taking, and this surprises me because of all the other news we heard, but beer is taking some market share from wine and spirits for on-premise sales.
Yeah, according to a report from NIQ CGA, which is a research consultancy that analyzes on-premise alcohol sales, which is bars and restaurants basically, beer is gaining market share at bars, restaurants, and other venues. It's doing this by taking away a little market share from both spirits and wine. Beer's dollar share over the past year is actually up a small amount, but it's 0.3%. They're up to 40.1% of total alcohol dollars spent. Spirits and wine are down 0.4% and 0.3% respectively. And spirits, are still the king with the largest dollar share at 46.1%, but they're not too far ahead of beer. Interestingly, RTD canned cocktails are also gaining share. They're up 0.4%, which I have to wonder if the convenience factor of that is driving it, or people have their brand of cocktail and they know they can get the same cocktail every place they go, so they order that can because they know that's their thing. So whereas other cocktails, it's kind of like who's making it, you never know. So I wonder if that's driving a little bit of that. But anyway, draft beer has gained share over packaged beer at bars and restaurants, and that makes sense. Speaking for myself, I almost never order a can or bottle when draft is available, except with places that have good seller lists, so they have good cans and good bottles tucked away. Pale lager dominates on-premise beer volume, and it's gaining share. And despite the positive trend for beer, overall beer dollar sales and volume have declined, and here's why. Beer has a slightly bigger piece of the pie, but the pie is getting smaller because people just aren't drinking as much, at least not in bars and restaurants. So they're taking more, but it's getting to be a smaller pie. So it's
bigger
good for
piece
beer.
of the smaller pie, basically.
Exactly.
Is what's
So
happening
silver lining-ish.
All right. I guess take what you can. Yeah, I'm curious. We're gonna see everything level out here. And years ago, talking with Bart Watson at the Brewers Association, and he did say, he's like, it's coming. He's coming, but it's not so much a bubble burst as just market normalization. We had a huge growth. It's been kind of bloodbathy in craft beer. I don't know if it would be considered a bubble burst or market normalization. I'm not sure what the delineation point is between the two of those there, but we saw another brewery announce their closure, this week here in Georgia, and I'm sure it's happened in many other places. But it's if the pie just settles, you know what? It's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but all right, we know the pie's getting smaller. We're aware of that. But if we can get a consistent pie size and just maintain that would be nice, and just let everybody who is cranking continue to crank and put their ingredients into the pie without continuing to shrink the pie.
I think the key is we to get back on the growth streak is we've got to allow Gen Z to invent beer. I think
Allow them to
if they can
invent it,
or
yeah.
just like talk them into inventing beer and let them think that they did, and then we can take off again because they like that. They like to invent things that exist.
Man, I got to tell you, with the way everything's going in the world this day, I'm just really surprised people are drinking less. It's
Right?
kind of a shocker there, to be honest with you.
People are putting out presidential packs for every day of the current administration because people are thinking like, hey, I need a beer, and somehow we're drinking less. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's people are fighting each other in the streets.
Is it them cannabis smokers, man? Is that what it is? We're gonna have to start a cannabis podcast strictly so we can have some comparison statistics there and see.
Yeah,
what's going on with that. They're like, yeah, you know what? I don't drink, but boy, am I stoned nearly constantly.
Yeah,
yeah. It's definitely something that has taken a lot of market share. I mean, I was merchandising a Total Wine today, and the store manager.
That's right. I forgot Nate's a weed peddler.
He's a pothead.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't partake, but I definitely am in the industry. And but I was talking to the store manager for my local Total Wine, and he was commenting on how much market share hemp beverages have taken away from his store. Only sells beer and wine, and he's like, yeah, it's very solidly a big category for us already.
Yeah. Well, I hope that they ban your beverages, Nate, so craft beer can come back again, because they're working on it. They're trying to get you out of there.
Yeah, I know.
Let's not let them adults make their own decisions. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead, man.
The local section of the Total Wine near me, this might be the one that Nate's talking about. There's like 3 sections of this long alleyway that used to be all the local beer. It's now all like hemp derived THC whatever beverages, and I saw the signs for it, and my first thought was, well, that stuff can go all right to heck, and I move right past it. But then I thought, like, are we to the point where you could just kind of put that in a store and just with a proper label like a Total Wine, and I guess it's legal? So I guess we're finding out if it's legal or not. Part of me was like, yeah, I hate that it took over craft beer. Then the other part of me is like, wait, is it that legal now? Is that just
it has to be hemp derived. That's the big thing. That's the catch right now, is that any and it can be THC or CBD, right, Nate? It just has to be hemp derived. And I was speaking to our buddy Joe, that's with Scofflaw Brewing, and they do have a line of the hemp beverages, THC beverages. And the thing with hemp is it does have THC. It's just in a lot lower concentrations than is it just cannabis? Is that what the other one's called? Hemp versus cannabis? Or
yeah, so that's where it's at right now, is that cannabis is wanting to open the floor for their beverages by pushing at least on the state level, Georgia legislature to ban hemp beverages, so that when cannabis beverages, should they ever become legal, have a smooth sailing way into stores and shelves.
Man, that's dirty pool right there. When you got cannabis fighting against hemp, and
I didn't.
Yeah.
Is that what's going on? Oh,
well, I tell you what, there's a certain distillery, and I won't call them on the carpet for this. I won't call them out in public, because I'll say that I got my information from a reliable source, but they did request that I did not pass along. But there's a distillery in Georgia that actively worked for some bills against craft beer because of things that they felt it would have given craft beer unfair advantages against what they could do. And so, man, you're fighting against your brothers and sisters here. This is just
Yeah.
crazy stuff, man. And it was, I understand trying to do things better for your business, but I don't know. I guess it's a tough thing, man. Maybe something that's good for somebody else really hurts you, and then you got to kind of defend your own. But I don't know. It seems like dirty pool to me.
Yeah, competing against your competitors using the legal system seems dirty to
Yeah,
me. It just seems gross. I'm like, yeah,
politics, man.
compete with your product and make a better product, do it a better way. No, I'm just gonna make your stuff illegal. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess that works too, but that's gross. I mean,
So here's an interesting thought. Dave Adams in the chat here commented that he feels like cannabis drinks are only going to be a short-term fad. What do you guys think on that? Nate, being in the industry, are you working in a fad industry, or is this just a new beverage line that's going to stick around?
I think for how many people we've known over the years that have enjoyed like
Partake.
THC and
Yeah,
who have partook.
right.
And this is just another delivery method of being able to enjoy it. I'm It might be a fad, but I don't think it's going anywhere. I really do think that there's enough I think there's enough people who are down with alcohol and down with the calorie dense products that, maybe it's not the craft seltzer or the hard seltzer that the direction is in, but maybe it's the people who I'm tired of smoking it. I'm tired of getting my little vape pen. I'm tired of doing the gummy. I'll drink a can of it.
Okay. Brian, you have any thoughts on this?
I think that this is something there's such a following for everything cannabis and THC and all that sort of thing. I think that this is I don't think this is going anywhere. Unlike hard seltzer, which I always thought was nonsense and was going to be relegated to a very small selection, and everything I read shows that hard seltzer is just nosediving hard. Like it's beating craft beer down, So I think that this is taking up a lot of it's stealing market share from that hard. The people that might have gone with a hard seltzer, I'm like, oh, why would I do that when I can get this with a little, a THC in it, that sort of thing. So I think this will be. I see this being something that's around long term. I don't know if it's going to be as huge as it is currently. I'm not sure if it's. Are people really going to want as many alternatives as there are? Just the same thing with hard seltzer. There will be a small amount of it around, probably indefinitely, but not everybody needs to make one. Probably, maybe for the tap room they do, but not. It doesn't need to be on the shelf. So, my guess is it's probably a mix of both. I think it'll probably once it's legal and it's actually ingrained and it's not going anywhere. I think it'll be around. I just don't know if it's going to be huge. I just don't. I don't know
Okay.
about that.
Yeah. So my thinking, and let me just preface this by saying total speculation because I have no idea about that industry at all. This is just my speculation, but there's a lot of delivery mechanisms for THC. And I do think there's people that still just enjoy firing up a blunt or a bong or whatever you have.
Yeah.
There's people that enjoy taking their gummies and that. I believe, and Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one thing the beverages have going for them is they're typically fairly low dosage.
Correct.
So like if you're not wanting to get stoned, if you're just wanting to chill out or whatever, it may be a good option due to the lower dosage. But I think for them to have continued success, they're going to have to be in enjoyable beverages. And so if you're just, you're drinking, hey, this is a seltzer or whatever, look, there's 3 or 4 other ways I can deliver my THC. This seltzer isn't great enough for me to have to do that. And that's Rod J. Beer Ventures just chimed in, and he said that THC drinks are definitely seeing a boost. He said they just had a beer fest, and the THC beverage was one of the first spots that tapped out at a beer festival. So
Yeah.
people were getting a little cross-faded at that beer fest.
It sounds like it. I have to think that the people that are really into that eventually are going to want a stronger, and this might have been what you were leading into with what you were saying. Eventually, that 5 milligrams or whatever it is of THC, or maybe 10 or whatever the common thing is not going to be enough for a lot of people. They're going to go to another product that gives them a bit of a boost.
That was my point. Yeah.
They need their pastry stout is what it is. It needs to be like they need their 15%er, and I don't think that's on the market right now. And it has a challenge with legality. We have a challenge in beer just getting to 14% and higher here in Georgia, but in terms of THC, I think that's everywhere, aren't they? I think it's hard to find anything above 10.
So I can expand on that
right?
a little bit. So at least in Georgia, our lawmakers have it's two different governing bodies. It's our legislature that is instituting laws, and then it's the Department of Agriculture that's instituting policy or rules. Both have to be followed. One is a little bit more strenuous to if you get caught, you're breaking this law, then you're it's a little bit more severe, whereas breaking a rule, it's more of kind of a slap on the wrist, like you get a warning or something. Currently in Georgia, the package size is limited to 12 ounces and the dosage is limited to 10 milligrams. So there have been a number of products in the state that the can had 60 milligrams to the 12 ounce, but the serving size was 1 ounce. And so you got 5 milligrams per serving.
It. All right. So they figured out a way around that.
So that I did hear stories about that, Nate, like out in Colorado and stuff. When things became legal there, they were doing these gummies or candies and such that kind of like the can. If I buy a 12-ounce can of something, I'm assuming that is a serving. That's a serving. No one is going to split a single can between 12 people.
Correct.
So sip, pass. I don't think so.
We've seen it with like those super LE beers back in the day. You got I forget some of the big
they do
whales,
a hemp THC beverage bottle share, can share there. Yeah. Well, that's something that I agree with you, Brian. If people want higher dosages, there's other delivery mechanisms that are easier to go to. Yeah. And I think that could be where the THC beverages get their niche in the market is, hey guys, we're here for you to chill out. I have a friend who mentioned she drinks beer. She partakes in THC, cocktails and wine and all that. And she would say that she'd get off work on a Friday and she'd have like a single can of one of these THC beverages. And she's a very hyperactive, go kind of person. But she said she'd have one can and then she'd go out for dinner and drinks. And she didn't get high. It just calmed her down just a notch. And she's like, I could still go out and gonna have a few cocktails and a good dinner. And I was totally coherent. So that was her way. That's where it kind of fit into her lifestyle, so to speak, is that, a little bit of take the edge off and go through it. So interesting, man. Interesting. You know what? So I tried some of the various gummies over the years, and because they talk about getting calm and better sleep and all this, I'm like, hey man, I'm all for getting a better night's sleep in that. They've never agreed with me. They at best, they didn't give me any benefit. And I've had them a couple times where I actually felt worse and kind of sickly having them. So it's not something that I don't mess with it simply because it just doesn't do what it does for others. It does not do for me.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I've run into the same thing with some of them, and I have to wonder if it's just because it's kind of the Wild West and everybody's figuring stuff out. There may be processing that's done with who knows what that is not great for humans to consume, and that's entirely a possible thing. Because I've felt downright sick after some of them, and even going fairly light with them. So yeah, I'm also pretty much done with that sort of thing.
I'm just going to stay away from the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that devil's lettuce. What was it? The jazz? What's it called? I forget. Anyway, jazz cigarettes.
I have no idea.
That's what they were called. Jazz cigarettes and the devil's lettuce.
Jazz cigarettes, devil's lettuce. Yeah.
Stay away from all
man.
that.
Good stuff. Well, Brian, before we move on to our next story and away from weed, how about we give a shout out to our sponsor?
Yes, it's official. Spring is here. There is no missing the green dust on everything, and the weather has been beautiful all week. Sunny for the most part, mid to upper 70s. Might get a little overcast over the weekend at the tail end of it, but so far so good. It's the kind of weather that makes you want to hang around and enjoy a great beer on the patio. Indeed, all signs are pointing to Truck and Tap this weekend. So let's head into the bar and grab a few patio beers, shall we? At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Rainbow Sherbet from Prairie Artisan Ales. It's a kettle sour with raspberry, pineapple, and orange. I don't think it's possible or even legal to not wear shades while you drink that beer. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Yazoo's Hoppy Fields. It's an oak-aged American Wild Golden Ale, fermented with multiple strains of yeast, both from Nashville and Belgium. And then it's dry hopped with HRC 003, an experimental hop that is reported to contribute peach, mango, and orange notes to beer. I'll bet it's incredible, and there's only one way to find out. That's to go to Truck and Tap and order some. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Creature Comfort's Mucha Pilsner off the side pull tap. It's a crushable Czech Pilsner made with 100% Saaz hops, and it's on the side pull tap. And it's perfect patio beer. I don't think you need more of a reason than that to order it. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Six Bridges Birdie Putt Pilsner because I'm a sucker for Pilsners. You may have guessed this from all the Pilsner talks so far in terms of the beers I'm drinking. And in this list, this one is an Italian-style Pilsner, dry hopped with German Saphir hops, and that sounds wonderful, and I would encourage you to get one. Enjoy that on the patio. But, of course, you don't have to wait for the weekend to have a good time at Truck and Tap. They have great beer, good food, and events happening all week long. And hey, it's a great happy hour spot too. To find out what's happening any night of the week, check out truckandtap.com, their website, for all those details, everything that you might need. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap. You're the best. We love you guys. Brian, next up here, interesting stuff. So we had a couple of good beer news stories, but our friends in the UK may not have as good of news. Looks like their beer prices are going up.
Yeah. According to the British Beer and Pub Association, there is a new tax going into effect next month, and that will make the average pint of beer in the UK cross the £5 mark for the first time ever. And this is a big deal. That's roughly $6.50 for a pint on average. Of course, the prices are even higher in places like London. You can expect to pay north of £7 a pint, or up to 10 apparently. So that's really pricey when you convert it to our dollars, but it's still pricey for them, and they're not happy about it. According to a survey commissioned by the Campaign for Real Ale, aka CAMRA, you may have heard us talk about that in the past. But back in 2022, Brits were already of the opinion that beer was unaffordable at £4.80 a pint. So this is jumping up. So it's I guess that's about 72p is the way you do it. So between the two, oh no, my bad, it's about 20p, 21p.
480 to £5. Yes, 20p, Brian.
I think it's 501. I think is what it is. So
21p.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, there are fears that more price increases will also be coming, just because pubs may need them to stay in business because their expenses are going up as well. So you might have, gotten this from the way I'm treating all this, but reading this article is just a bit of a trip, because in the UK they talk about beer prices the way we talk about gas prices here in the US. So like we talk about gas prices hitting $3 a gallon or $5 a gallon, and how that's some sort of a bellwether, some sort of a it's a massive like cultural thing. Like, what you hit $3, you go over that, it's a big deal. You hit $5, you go over it, that's a big deal. And with their average price of a pint of beer, hitting $5 for them is like our gas hitting $5. It's
like
crazy.
Our egg prices right now. Eggs and gas over here, man. They're worried about that. They're worried about what you really need to worry about: the price of a pint.
Yeah, no, and I can't fault them for that. But the headline for one of the articles I read was like the price of beer soars above £5. Like soars. We're talking about their equivalent of 21 cents. Yeah, 21 pence. So it's but if gas prices went up 21 cents, you were like, man, what on earth is going on here? So it's an interesting perspective on what's happening here. But yeah, it's It's shaking them up
Priorities.
over there.
They
Yeah,
got their priorities, man. They know where to do it. Yeah. I get it. I can't speak to the actual British pub culture, but I hear their drinking culture is definitely more different than ours. It's just a thing. You don't argue, you go with meet the father from the local church down at the corner pub for a pint and stuff. There's not as much religion and three-tier systems involved in their beer as
even
there are ours.
I was looking at the dollar amounts. I'm like, all the pints I typically order when I'm going out, and I'm not even getting full pints. I'm getting snifters, 8, 10 ounces and whatnot. I'm like, they're only paying $6.50. Like, I guess this is the average. I'm like, I'm getting stuff for 7+ a lot of
Yeah.
places, and sometimes with dirty glassware, so I can see all the bubbles on the side, and like that's outrageous. But I'm like, it seems like they got it easier, and I think a lot of this is cask ale, so it is lighter. It should be less expensive to produce too. I would imagine, but yeah, part of me is a little jealous because it seems like their beer is cheaper than ours.
They're
But
cheap. They're mad because it's like, well, at least it's not here. I think I would love to see every brew pub do a $5 pint. Do a light pilsner or something. Do something that you can offer at $5 a pint. So someone can come in there and have an affordable drink. I don't want you losing money. I want you to keep your doors open, but I think you can make a good drinkable, sessionable beer and offer it at $5 a pint and still do well. And I think there would be a lot of people that would find that attractive. Even if it wasn't the only beer I drink, I could see me starting with that because it's going to be
yeah,
lighter. It's probably going to be a good place to, wet the palate and get going there. So, go in like, hey, let me get a $5 pint. And they should call it $5. They should call it $5 beer.
Yeah.
That should be the name of the beer, $5 beer.
doesn't even go into distro. It's just
Yeah,
there.
it's
Like,
our
that's
little
all.
house
You're
beer
you're
there.
not competing against other your retailers and everybody else. It's just the house beer. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I don't see a reason not to do that. I guess maybe the concern is that people won't order the more expensive pint, but man, you kind of want the people that would go in there and just order that and hang out, because those
Yeah.
guys pay the bills. They'll keep the lights on for you. So I know that's doable, and there have been places. It's been a few years, and I think the place I'm thinking of has since closed, but they had like a $3 pint night that like one night a week, and I'm like, I don't know if you could pull it off for $3 anymore, but I know you could probably pull off at least one beer for $5. That's got to be
You could do
doable.
that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Before our friends at Good Word Brewing opened up, one of the ideas they were talking about kind of some of the things they do to set themselves apart and be different. But one of the ideas they had was to brew a very low ABV table beer and have it available like they do with wine at Italian restaurants. You just got free table beer when you went there.
oh, that'd be
And
great.
I was so excited that now ultimately they didn't do it. I imagine it would have been tough, and they probably would have had people like Brian and I that would go in there and
Yes,
could I please have my 40th table beer there? Or they could have done it, and they could have done it similar to the wine, because I think with the wine that they'll chalk mark your table or whatever. Like you'll have the paper tablecloth, and each time you get a pour, they just tick it off, kind of like a Kolsch service kind of thing.
I was just thinking that
Yeah.
a built-in Kolsch service. So like if you turn your Kolsch glass up, they fill it. You turn it back down, and then they don't. So you
just
you
have it
call off.
standard fare there. Table beer available. If your glass is up and empty, fill her up, man.
It just gets
Fill
filled.
her
Yeah,
up. You know what? I dream of this. And when we go to little beer fest, I may corner Todd and say, hey, remember before you opened?
yeah. What's up with
You
that?
need to revisit this, man. You need to revisit this.
Oh,
Yeah, over on Instagram, we already have support for the $5 pint. The Multiverse
Good.
has already chimed
yeah.
in saying totally agree.
Yeah, man. The $5 pint. We should start a movement to get that going, man.
That's
I
right.
would be big supporter. Well, Brian, not to let the UK have all the fun with raising their beer prices here in the States, Oregon is trying to get their price of beer up.
Yeah, as a former Oregonian, I see this stuff and I can't help but notice it. But this has been a bit of a interesting drama. It's been going on for years. So once again, Oregon is trying to raise taxes on beer, or at least one Oregon politician is anyway. Oregon Representative Tanya Sanchez has introduced a proposal to raise retail taxes on beer, wine, and cider, all these things, to 8% by 2032, with the proceeds going to pay for substance abuse prevention for Oregon youth. And this is the same politician who, you might remember us talking about this in the past, has tried to put 1,000% and 3,000% taxes on beer and other spirits without much success. It tried really hard, had like a study going on it, and it could not get people to agree on an implementation strategy.
Really?
Yeah, because they were saying
couldn't get people to sign on for that 1,000% tax, huh? Okay.
it's ridiculous. But under the new proposal, consumers would pay the tax both when they buy beer at a store to go, like grocery store or whatever, and when they buy a pint at a restaurant or a bar. The tax would start at 2% in 2026, then climb an additional 2% every 2 years, ending at 8% in 2032. Here's the thing, though. This is a sales tax, and Oregon does not have sales taxes. That was one of the neat things about Oregon. I think that's still the case. This proposal would require them to put in place mechanisms to collect these taxes at both the government and retail levels, I assume, because that just doesn't magically start working, you know? And I'm also guessing that's not going to be cheap. You're going to have to hire some people to manage all this and deal with it. So I'm guessing that the Oregon youth wouldn't see much of the money. And to fix that, eventually, of course, they would have to increase those taxes to make sure those kids got the funds that they were supposed to get. I also suspect this politician is some kind of crazy neo-prohibitionist based on the history of ridiculous alcohol tax proposals that just don't stop. And of course, the Oregon Beverage Alliance vocally opposes the tax. They're citing both the record number of closures of breweries, tap rooms, and wineries. This is not going to help them out at all, as well as an all-time low number of youth alcohol and drug use, according to a recent survey that was carried out in Oregon. So there is not much of a leg to stand on for this. It seems like they have what seems like a good cause to put money towards, but it does seem more like this is just about punishing alcohol for some reason. And it's unclear to me why. I don't know this particular politician at all or anything about them. So, I mean, this is nuts. It really is nuts.
Only the anti-alcohol legislation they pushed forward, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so just dramatically ridiculous, all of it. I'm like, this is closer to being sane, but it's still like, it's basically an 8% tax on all alcohol. I'm like, what is your problem? You know, I don't know.
Well, they always throw in the for the children thing. Anytime they want to try and get people to do something against alcohol, it's for the children. You know, it's for the children. Here in Georgia with our law, and they throw it out there on just ridiculous stuff. Like this year with our bill trying to get some direct distribution for our self-distribution for our breweries. You know, the Wholesalers Association is like, well, the 3-tier system protects the children, make sure that beer is handled. And I'm like, y'all, come on. They didn't have anything else to say. It's like, should we go for the children thing? It's like, it's really all we can do. Really, that's basically all we can do here. Is
beverages are being banned for the children.
Right, right, exactly. You know what? Don't let your kid go to a brewery and buy a keg then if you want to protect
for the kids.
Them.
I like that they say that, but not a single distributor has anybody getting carded when they're dropping off alcohol. Like you could be dropping it off in an alley behind a retail spot, and it's just somebody's picking it up and giving it directly to a kid, or it could be somebody that's just barely 18 that looks old that's picking it up. It's going to run off with it like that. I got a party now.
Yeah,
like
they're still going to do.
They're not carding anybody. They're not doing anything safe.
You know, interesting story though, Brian. That makes me think. When I lived in New York many years ago, this was my early high school days, and we had couriers up there that you could call, and this was before the days of Instacart and Uber Eats and all this, but it was the same thing. They didn't, when I moved down south, they didn't have them. So I'm sure other places did, but I know they didn't have them where I was down south. But you could call them and say, hey, I need you to go to Wegmans and I need a dozen eggs, a bag of Doritos, and a 12-pack of Miller. And they're like, okay. And they'd come and they would charge a fee. And as someone who was not old enough to purchase alcohol at the time, I had a buddy whose sister was like, she was like 16 or 17, just a little older looking. Like 9 out of 10 times they'd give you the beer. Like those couriers just wouldn't care.
They don't care. Yeah.
So that was the way. So maybe I shouldn't have told that story, because now if the wholesalers hear it, they'll be like, see, We told you.
That's how
Can't-
that's how
for
it
the
happens.
children.
Busted
So,
for the kids.
sorry, y'all. I shouldn't have shared that. Now they've got fuel for
Dang.
their fires there.
They
Now we know who to
profit.
blame.
They profit for the children.
This is my fault. Yeah. Well, Brian, this may change with the latest talk of all the tariffs and all that. Brian, do we have a tariff update this week? Any changes?
I haven't seen anything specific that's changed. I know that the last we saw, some stuff was supposed to go into effect on the 2nd of April, and I looked around and I saw references to the existing tariffs we know about affecting stuff, but I didn't see anything about new. So I don't know if anything's changed at all.
I texted JD Vance and asked him to add me to his Signal chat. So if more news comes out on the tariffs, I'm like right there in the front line to get that information.
Get hooked right up. Yeah.
They do add journalists to those. So I just said I was in the media, a journalist. And so I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay. Looking forward to the updates.
Anyhow, Brian, the news story is that the popularity of cans continues to grow.
Yeah. So they're continuing to gain popularity with craft brewers, with 76% of craft beer going into cans that's being sold. I believe this is as of for all of 2024. This represents a 3.2% increase in can share over glass since 2023, and a 13.2% increase from 2021. So it's really rocketing up. At that point in 2021, the can share was just 62.8% of all craft beer. So from 62.8% to 76%, big. Interestingly, non-craft beer sales are still predominantly in bottles, 71% in bottles and 29% in cans is the breakdown. Six packs remain.
Surprised at that, Brian. I'm kind of surprised at that. All right.
Well, and I notice when I'm trying to buy a look around for Bitburger, I can get Bitburger in cans in 4-packs, but if you want anything more than like a 4-pack of Bitburger, you have to get it in bottles. And I don't know if that's just a choice locally or, and it just occurred to me. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think that all the big stuff, a lot of it in large package is in bottles. So I don't know. I haven't done the tabulation. Apparently they have, so they know what's going on with that.
Cool.
Yeah, but 6-packs remain the leading unit size with 46% of sales, and but that's a 5% decline from 2023. So 6-packs are actually on the way down. I think the 16-ounce 4-packs have been growing constantly, but yeah, 4-packs account for 11% of sales, and I, like you mentioned earlier, I can't wait to see what, if any, impact all the tariffing is going to be doing to packaged beer. I mean, it can't be nothing, right? This is going to scare at least a few people into like, you know what? Bottles weren't half bad. We could do bottles again, and I like cans. I like cans for anything hoppy or anything that's, likely to get light struck that you don't want being light struck.
Right.
But I don't care if you put, my saisons and my stouts and some other beers in bottles. I'm cool with that. You could do that, especially if it keeps the price down. Yeah, please do that.
Yeah, if you need to keep the price down, and that's for certain beers, I do still enjoy the large format bottles. For kind of the presentation, the experience of it, and all of that. That's always a good time there for sure. Well, Brian, due to time constraints, I'm going to jump ahead here for a very important story that I think we need to share, especially for any of our listeners that are 90 years or older. This is important info we need to share with you. Yes. If you are a nonagenarian, you can get you a lifetime supply of Fireball.
Yeah, this was too weird not to mention. It's Fireball is offering a lifetime supply of cinnamon whiskey to individuals who are 90 or older. They're saying that age is just a number. We've heard this before. And they claim that senior citizens love Fireball, and they've been seeing proof of this all over social media. I have no idea what social media they're
It's got to be Facebook. That's it. It has to be.
Is that what it is? I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. I guess there's groups of, the elderly drinking Fireball. So if you're listening to this show and you're 90 plus years old, you have until March 31st, not a lot of time left, to enter the contest. You can go to lifetimesupplyofireball.com, or let's be real, you're probably going to want to mail your entry in.
Of course.
And you can go you'll have to do a little. You're gonna have to. I don't have a mailing address. It's was in the press release, but I forgot to copy it down. But
Have your grandkids look it
Yes.
up for you, and they'll take care of you.
there is a legit mailing address because they know how you guys roll. They know
Yeah.
you like postage stamps and paper and things like that. And they specifically say you can't pass along your lifetime supply of Fireball in a will or in any other sneaky whiskey inheritance loophole. This is for you and you alone. So you
All
can
right.
enjoy it for however long you got left. I'm wondering how much Fireball would a 90-year-old be drinking? And yeah, I wonder how many bottles you go through. Lifetime
Yeah.
supply. I'm like, people live until like 110, 111,
Sure.
115 in some cases. I'm like, maybe you're drinking the whole time. I don't know. That could be really expensive for Fireball.
Not exactly related, but somewhat. And I'm going to tell the story anyhow. But there was a situation where somebody bought a house from an elderly woman and got like a super cheap price on it. But part of the agreement is that she got to continue to live in the house until she passed. And I believe she was like in her upper 80s when the deal was made. And that she lived to like 112. So sold the house
wow.
and then lived like another 25 years. I'm like, what you gonna do, man? What you gonna do? Well, y'all, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy what we are doing here, please tell a friend to tune in. Share this show on your social media. Let others know about us. We would greatly appreciate it. Like our post on social media on Facebook. If you're 90 or older, you can like our Facebook post. Brian
That's right.
takes care of all of our Twitter/X content, and we think that was groovy. If you really enjoy what we're doing, we'd love for you to go to patreon.com/beer guys and support us there. We'll send you out some cool swag, and we'll get you in our Discord chat where there is constant talk about beer and other crazy things, and you get the link to come join us for the after party and have a few beers on Wednesday evening. But with that said, we hope that you all have an absolutely fantastic week. I'm gonna do that again. I was focused on making sure I got the outro music right.
Yeah.
And stumbled that. So there we go. Gosh. With all that said, we hope that you have a fantastic week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. I think I'm gonna just start leaving the outro music out because I still have to, when I do the podcast, I still have to add it in post manually. And it just, boy, for some reason, it just throws me all kinds of curveballs there.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up.
I just saw
but
the multiverse seemed to disapproved of the Fireball story, but I'm
so
guessing,
they're on board. Multiverse was on board for the $5 beers,
Yes.
but not the unlimited Fireball.
No, the
for
ruined
90-year-olds, but probably because they're
ruined
not
it,
90
dude.
yet.
Jealousy.
The ruined it dude was in reference to Tim ruining it for the rest of us with the courier comments. The cheap pin was
sorry,
for Fireball.
Sorry.
got
That's
it. Got
my
it.
bad.
Okay. Yeah.
That
Tim.
is my bad.
Narking
I
everybody
do
out.
apologize.
Jeez.
Terrible. Well, y'all, we are going to end the stream right now. Thanks for hanging with us. Have a good one. Again, if you are one of our Patreon supporters, we're going to put the link in the Discord chat for you to come hang with us. But we will not be live here next Wednesday, because we are doing a show at Little Beer Fest this weekend, which will come out next Saturday. So no live stream next Wednesday, but we'll be back. I guess we're going to be in April then, aren't we? So
Yes,
be
I
all the
think
way
so.
into April. Crazy stuff. But
Ugh.
y'all have a good one. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Cheers.